Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the recap and review of NCIS Season 16, Episode 21, Judge, Jury, ... We start out in 1989, where MC Hammer was supreme overlord and we exclusively ate out of ice cream trucks. For some reason, I don't know, I wasn't there. A boy named Tommy Larson buys a clowny cake from the ice cream truck, and then him and his sister go back to the house to play video games. The father eventually comes to get them for dinner, and the sister says that Tommy's lying down because he wasn't feeling well. And by not feeling well, she means he's been fatally poisoned. The same thing. In present day, Casey's able to identify the DNA found in one of the clowny cake bars and trace it back to a man named Arthur Crumb, who's responsible for poisoning the ice cream. So now the team is testifying to put the clowny cake murderer behind bars. They really should have chose a different ice cream. Meanwhile, McGee is taking a personal day at Splendifera, which is like if Google and Apple and Microsoft had a love child, I think. McGee is led around by his chipper and slightly unsettling tour guide named Clarissa. He has to wear a Mary Beth lanyard, which I think is just Alexa's evil knockoff twin. In court, Tommy's father, Kyle Larson, has an outburst and has to be restrained and taken outside by Gibbs. Kyle and Gibbs bond over the pain of losing a child. Ow, again. This seems to be something we're continually referencing. We'll talk about it. They show the whole courtroom Crumb's interrogation tape, and he's like, I just wanted them to get sick, and only one of them died. Sloane, meanwhile, is up on the stand, and she just like roasts him senseless. I don't have much to say about it, it's just pretty sick. Elsewhere, Vance is just scrolling through his phone and deleting pictures of him and Mallory, like the woman who was spying on him, and every individual picture apparently has a name. Like the one he's deleting is like our wonderful night out.png, which just also happens to be how I name every individual photograph I have. That's fine. CIA agent Clark bursts in, and he's really panicky because he wants them to be further investigating that slush fund he found, but Vance assures him they have an inside man working on the job. That inside man just so happens to be McGee, which is why he's at Splendifera. On the stand, Casey is really cool and charming and collected, but that doesn't stop the judge from declaring a mistrial. Apparently, the only reason Crumb's DNA was in the system was because of a crime that he was cleared of years ago, and once he was cleared, his DNA was supposed to be wiped from the system, but it never was. Since the DNA was accidentally kept in, now all DNA-related evidence they have is unusable. And since they only have DNA evidence, it's not great. Tommy's father freaks out at Gibbs and is like, if you don't take care of Crumb, I'll take care of him myself. And Gibbs is like, oh my god, please don't do that. Torres is confused why they suddenly have to start following the rules. You know, since the team always follows rules, except when they throw it into a fire, or just don't want to. Gibbs tells them that they do have to obey the whole like clearing the DNA evidence thing, and he's like, get his picture off the screen, and I like that they have him like Avengers style disintegrate. Torres and Bishop are sifting through old case files, and I half expected Bishop to just whip out a notebook and be like, this was Ziva's first case as a child. CBS, again, if you're looking for a writer, just let me know. That night, Crumb is eating clowny cake bars and harassing teenagers on the basketball court and littering, you know, like the stand-up guy he is. He then gets into his car and is immediately strangled. Oh no. When the team gets to the body, they're like, well, at least we have DNA now. As you can tell, everyone's really heartbroken about it. They also find OxyContin at the scene of the crime, but once Palmer performs the autopsy, he sees that he was strangled and then force-fed to make it look like an overdose. Gibbs and Torres go to Larson's basement and they find alcohol and OxyContin, but he swears he wasn't the one to kill Crumb. His alibi is that he was talking to his daughter and they're rebuilding their relationship. Meanwhile, McGee sneaks into Splendifera's Government Resources Center and figures out that the slush fund was emptied, but before it was, $3 million was withdrawn. Clark meets with Gibbs and Vance at Gibbs's house, and McGee updates them on the situation, and Gibbs tells him to keep looking, but he can't, because he's being arrested. Clarissa says that she saw McGee had logged in and says he was really never interested in the job offer to begin with. I guess Clarissa really explained it all. They catch the rest of the team up on what's going on, and Torres asks Bishop, like, how could Gibbs keep something so big from us? Yes, Bishop. How could someone keep something so big from the rest of the team? Also, did Torres forget that Gibbs literally kept a whole fiancé from them last episode? Casey gets into Crumb's laptop and it's wiped clean, but she says that Splendifida has access to his cloud backup. And Casey's like, well, that's really good because like Splendifida surely will help us. Yeah, they end up needing a warrant. The judge from the case earlier ends up expediting the warrant and getting McGee off the hook. I guess everyone's just allowed to get personally involved in cases now. That's fine. The judge turns to Vance and is like, wow, I really underestimated Gibbs. He really just doesn't let it go, huh? Like, he's real nervous. It makes me think that he's probably involved in this. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thanks to one of Crumb's Mary Beth devices, they're able to see that someone was lurking around Crumb's house. That someone is the bailiff from earlier. Remember him? They're also able to see that the bailiff was making calls near where Crumb was killed around the time of his death. They bring him into interrogation and he says that he spent years and years witnessing corruption in the system and that maybe someone needs to balance the scales themselves. Casey reveals he had $3 million waiting for him in Berlin. I digress. They figure out that the money from SecDev's account was used to pay for the hit. Gibbs and Vance go back to Gibbs's house and they're met with a bullet hole in Gibbs's front door. Gibbs needs to move. When they walk in, they see that Clark has been killed and Mallory is above him and she says it's not what you think, which isn't particularly helpful because I'm thinking 400 things. And then we're hit with the to be continued and that is judge, jury, ... So I guess the whole McGee looking for a different job thing was a little bit of a red herring, which actually did kind of take me off guard because after last episode where McGee was kind of hurt about how Gibbs treats him or like how he perceives Gibbs treats him, I really thought that might lead into something where McGee was like at least flirting with the idea of looking somewhere else, but it doesn't appear so. You never know though. McGee might wake up next episode and be like, you know what? Those nap pods were pretty dope. I'd also just be more concerned that he's using the word dope. There were several moments in this episode where I think Torres kind of like borderlined Swan mode. For like a few brief moments, I was like, did he kill the clowny cake killer? Which I don't think he did. I don't think he's part of the vigilante justice team. But it was like an interesting moment. What I think would be even more interesting was the fact that he literally just had an episode where he's like, I'm not a killer. And then like 3 episodes later, he's like, you know, maybe I am. And I'll just say it again because I say it every video, but I'm still waiting for them to kind of discuss what happened in Mona Lisa. And that might not be something that happens this season. Maybe season 19. I don't know, but I'd be surprised if it didn't come up again. I also think that this was the first episode in a few weeks where there was no even roundabout Ziva references. I mean, I guess you could kind of count that thing with like Torres saying like, how can he keep such a big secret from us? As being like a nudge towards Bishop, but like, ow, my arm hurts from reaching so far. Speaking of references, there have been a lot of references to Gibbs's daughter, and just daughters in general, which is why it makes sense that the finale is called Daughters. And I know I just made a whole video talking about like a different potential title. IMDB played me, it's fine, I'll live. But Daughters is like the real actual title, unless CBS just wants to change it and play me for a fool. One of the reasons I'm not even upset about it is because I like the title Daughters more, to be honest. When it comes to Daughters on NCIS, our cup runneth over. I mean, because daughters could be like bloodline daughters, and it could also involve daughter figures. And like, once you have daughters and daughter figures in the mix, you could literally include like Kelly, Kate, Ziva, Bishop, McGee's daughter, Jimmy Palmer's daughter, Tolly, and then of course Emily, who this finale line centers around quite a bit. Emily, for those of you who forget, is Fornell's daughter. Beautiful, beautiful red hair. I'm so interested to see a storyline with her and Fornell because we've seen Emily go through so much, and like Fornell too, but Emily is just so young, and like was so young when all of this started, that I kind of enjoy seeing her grow up. Even when it's something not so great, the finale apparently deals with her having an opioid addiction and eventually overdosing and ending up in the hospital. That's what ropes in the vigilante justice team. Fornell wanting Gibbs to take down the drug dealers, and Gibbs kind of having to grapple with his own history of vigilante justice, which I think then ties in Kelly. That also ties in how Diane would get brought in, whether she comes back in like flashback form or it's like a ghost. I love it when they come back as ghosts, so I'm like rooting for that. I really like that it's daughters plural, not only because daughter would have been a weird title, but daughters just opens the doors to so many different things. I mean, we've just had a daughtery season, if you will, with all these recent Kelly references, like these references to Gibbs losing a child, and then we have Emily coming in, and then there was Sloane with her daughter, which I feel like this would be a good time to bring that up, you know. What better time to bring up daughters than an episode titled Daughters? Once we're into daughter figure territory, I find it hard to believe we wouldn't get some kind of Ziva reference. I just feel like, again, that's such a good opportunity to bring up that whole thing we started in She, remember that? Nothing's impossible for this finale plotline just yet. I don't think that's a stretch. I don't think I'm reaching. The closer we get to the actual finale, the more I think this might be something that spills over into season 17. Just because I feel like we have such great momentum right now. There's something a little bit scary about pushing that storyline further away, especially if it's not something right at the beginning of season 17. That being said, I do not want to see this storyline rushed. I don't want it to be just kind of shoved aside as a B plot. If the storyline is something really great, I think it might be worth that wait into the next season. Not that they're coming to me for approval about it, but God, I just love Ziva and Tony and Tali, whatever other secret children they have by now, I don't know. I just keep talking about Ziva, and yes, part of that is because I love her character and I'm so invested in it. But another part is that I just think this is the most vague, kind of up in the air storyline we have going right now. Like, we know we're dealing with the whole secret bank account thing, and we know we're dealing with Gibbs's inner turmoil, and we kind of dealt with Mickey and his job prospects a little bit. But with the Ziva storyline, we kind of don't know what we're gonna get. We don't know if we're gonna get. Again, I love like the vague, mysterious nature of it all. I'm like mad when NCIS gives me a clear answer. I'm like, that wasn't very vague of you. In the pictures for Lost Time, it looks like Gibbs has his marine cut back, which is interesting and beautiful. We also see him with Dr. Grace in the bar. We also see Emily, I think, in the bar. Just not looking like a great moment for her. Again, I love the idea of dealing with Gibbs's inner turmoil. I think we're certainly going to talk about Kelly, but I'd be curious to see what other daughter figures get brought up, because I think it's fair to say that a lot of them have had a significant impact on his life, including that one, the one that I'm talking about, the one that I'm always talking about. And especially since The Office got brought into the mix, I'd love to know when we would see that again, because I feel like we would see that again if they made a point to say that she's going to be working there now and had that whole scene, that whole moment. This episode was very case-driven, which isn't always my favorite, but I think it was necessary to set us up for the rest of the finale arc. But I think this might be kind of where it starts to more mesh with the whole Gibbs-ness of it all. The next 3 episodes are all consecutive. Like I said, we're done with the breaks. Hallelujah. I think we're gonna get some really great moments with Gibbs and Fornell's friendship, which I love. And then there's the whole thing with Mallory, which I just kind of really forgot about until this moment. We have to figure out how she's involved in all of this. What happened with Clark? How are her and Vance gonna work things out? What's gonna happen to their relationship? How is it gonna evolve or devolve? Will Gibbs move? Will Gibbs get a new front door? I'm asking all the important questions going into this finale. I also think that they're hinting that the judge is involved in the vigilante justice team, especially since the bailiff was also involved. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see, like, not only who's involved, but who's at the top of it all, like who's running this. I'm kind of more excited to see it as like a gateway into Gibbs's feelings about vigilante justice, which I know like the press releases said we'll be getting into, because I think that's going to be an interesting door into his psyche. I think after this coming episode, we might have a better idea of where things are going. I don't think we'll have like a complete picture, of course, but I think we might better know the direction, or maybe not. I think we're just still pretty early on in the finale arc to tell exactly where things are gonna go. Then again, I think, 5 minutes left in the finale arc, we still don't know exactly where we're gonna go, but you know what I mean. What on earth do you think is gonna happen? I want to know some of your guys' theories going into these final 3 episodes, but I believe that's all for now, so I will see you guys for the recap and review of NCIS Season 16, Episode 22, and Executioner.